She is a member of the design district, and is all about marketing and doing things to help improve companies and that kind of stuff. So, Suzanne, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Boy, that was short and sweet. I love it.
Sorry.
That's great. How's everybody doing? You guys sick of Zoom meetings already? Pretty much, yeah. Well, we do the best of what we got, so we'll make it work as well as we can today. So we're going to do a couple of things. We're going to use the chat feature just to get some feedback from you guys. So if you don't mind pulling up your chat box, the first thing I wanted to note, and you can just type this in the chat box, is are you a business owner or a salesperson or both? So business owner, salesperson, or both. Just type that in the chat box because I'd like to get a feel for the group that we have here just before we start. So we got a salesperson, both, salesperson, okay, both, yeah, okay. So lots of both business owners and salespeople. Then that means that the material that I've crafted for you guys today should be of interest to you. So let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get right into that. So the first thing is that today we're going to be talking about expanding your sphere of influence. And another chat question for you. So type in your chat box before we even get into sphere of influence. Do you think your sphere of influence is less than 1,000 people, between 1,000 and 5,000, or more than 5,000? Just type 1,000, okay, less than 1,000. So below 1,000, 1 to 5,000, or more than 5,000. Okay. All right. So everybody's pretty much less than or 1 to 5, looks like. All right. Good. Well, I think we're going to surprise all of you guys with how big your sphere of influence is. And hopefully that's what you'll take away from today's conversation. So just a little bit about me. So my company is Ideas 360, and basically what we help organizations do, we help with branding, we help with websites. I typically say anything that's got your logo on it, we can help you with. And my background in sales and marketing really covers a pretty wide diversity of companies. So I've worked for Fortune 500 companies, Fortune 100 companies, and then I've done a lot of years working with small business owners, and in particular in the home and garden industry. So I used to work with Chesapeake Home. I actually owned the Baltimore Home Improvement magazine some years back. And when I was with those publications, I served on the board for the ASID, the Maryland Building Industry Association, the National Association for Modelers. So the design district is where I'm comfortable because that's where my background typically has been. So that's kind of where I'm coming from you. We went through how many of you own your business and how many of you are in sales. And the first thing I want to clarify for you guys is that when people buy from you, they buy from you. Everybody get that? When people buy from you, they buy from you. If they don't buy from you, then they buy from them. And here's what I mean by that. If I am looking for travel and I buy from Beverly, it's because I know her or I've been referred to her, and so I'm buying from her. If I buy from Expedia, I'm buying from them. And the biggest difference, and the reason I point that out, is because your sphere of influence will attract more people to you and away from them. So the way that small businesses compete is by having a sphere of influence. If you don't have a sphere of influence, people just buy from them, the big companies, the big organizations out there. If you're in the home and garden industry, it sounds like Home Depot or Lowe's. That's the them. So the sphere of influence is really important because it can help people buy from you instead of buying from them. So that's point number one. The sphere of influence is really, anybody here know about Venn diagrams? Yeah, I got a few shakes of the head. So the Venn diagram is a sweet spot in the middle when we talk about sphere of influence. And in your sphere of influence, that spot in the middle is you, But those 3 circles surrounding that spot in the middle, that is your sphere of influence. And that's what we're going to talk about today, because if you are able to tap into those 3 circles, you're going to have people that are more likely to buy, they're more likely to refer, they're more likely to trust, and they're more likely to know other people that can buy from you as well. And so that's the sweet spot. And how do we do that? So how many of you have, again, let's just use the chat box here. How many of you have more than 500 contacts on LinkedIn and or more than 500 friends? So just put yes if you've got more than 500, or no if you have less than 500. So we're looking for 500 contacts on LinkedIn, 500 plus friends on Facebook. No, yes, yes, okay. Keep it going. No, less. Okay. So for those of you that have more, fantastic, because actually you've already started to develop a sphere of influence. For those of you that have less, you're going to see some numbers in a minute about why it's so important to elevate your numbers. So let me take you straight into the details. When we talk about that sphere of influence, there's really 3 spheres. The first sphere of influence is your family, your friends, the people that you're closest to. Most people mistake that as being the sphere of influence. That's not your sphere of influence. Those are people who probably would buy from you if they had a need. They're people who already know you, they already trust you, but technically, they're a very limited number of people. So when we had folks say that they have less than 500 contacts, that's probably because they're only really counting the contacts that they actually know, the friends on Facebook that they actually know personally, okay? The great part about that first sphere, that green sphere, is that if someone in that sphere needs your business, you have a 95% close ratio, that if they need your stuff and they reach out to you, you're going to close them. So that part's great. But remember, that part's so small and so limited. The second sphere is where all the money is. So if Lisa knows somebody who needs my product or service, that's a second sphere of influence. They're friends of friends. They're friends that you meet in networking groups. They're people who touch people in the buying cycle. So Kurt, as an example, Kurt and I do similar things, but we're actually complementary versus competitive. So Kurt may know people who need my help long before I know those people. So they're in that second sphere of influence. And the great thing about the second sphere of influence is that your close ratio, instead of being at a 20% close ratio, which is the average close ratio, it moves all the way up to a 60% close ratio. And why is that? Anybody know why that is? Just go ahead and pop it in the chat. Why is it that friends of friends and people a little further out, yep, Lisa said testimony. Because Kurt, you're right on it, man. Because we trust our friends. So even though Lisa has somebody that she knows and she refers them to me, even though I don't know that person from Adam, they already trust me because Lisa has given me as someone they might want to contact, right? See how that plays in? So your close ratio goes up to 60% on a contact like that. And the big opportunity here is that most of us do not nurture or farm or know how to generate leads from that second sphere of influence. And so that's why that's worth so much money to us. And then when we go to the third sphere of influence, those are people who are much further out in expansion, but they're also people that we can still touch and farm to pull into the second sphere, to pull into the first sphere. So let's see how that works. In this example, I'm using a guy named Dave. Dave has 500 Facebook friends and 1,000 LinkedIn connections. Each of Dave's sphere also has friends. So Anybody on here who's old enough to remember there was an old Suave commercial. They used to say, and so on, and so on, and so on. And that's how your sphere of influence works. So let's say that I am Dave. And let's say that Lisa is in my green circle of friends. Well, Lisa has 500 friends too. So all of her friends and networking professionals are now in my second sphere. So I've just if I can touch those people, I've just multiplied my own sphere of influence by, look at the number at the bottom. My second SOI is now, instead of 1,500, it's now over 2 million. Did I lose everybody on that one? I see glazed eyes. This works really well on LinkedIn. And then if I look at the third sphere, which is people that Lisa knows and the people that she knows who also have a sphere of influence, I now am up over 3 billion people. So when we think about how we farm for new business, new leads, if we're just focusing on that green sphere, we're limiting our opportunities. But if we can get to that second sphere, we can start to pull people from well outside our immediate sphere of influence. How do we do it? So the first mistake is that a lot of people go to that first sphere and they say, they market to them, they connect with them on social media, and that's it. That's where they focus. So what we have to do is get to the second sphere. And the easiest way to get to the second sphere is really through LinkedIn. There's an easy way to do it, which I show people how to do this through a LinkedIn class. But the second sphere of influence is where all the money is. So we have two ways that we can develop a sphere of influence. On social media, we can do it through Facebook and through LinkedIn. Most people do not know how to use LinkedIn. But if you are in the B2B world, that is a quick mastery that you have got to develop. And there, I offer a class, but there are bajillion classes. YouTube has them. You can get a class anywhere of how to nurture your sphere of influence on LinkedIn. But if you're in the B2B sector, that's critical. Even if your target client isn't B2B, let's say you're Lisa and your target client is a B2C. What is the advantage of Lisa developing more B2B connections? Anybody know? Go ahead and throw it in the chat. So Lisa's an interior designer and her primary client is a consumer, a homeowner, let's say. What is the advantage to Lisa of developing more connections on LinkedIn? Strengthening credibility and contacts, okay. What else? Anybody have a guess? All right, let me throw out an example for you. What if, Kurt, you're on the right track. Margaret's got it. What if Lisa connects with an architect on LinkedIn? How many clients, prospects, or sphere of influence does that architect have? 100? Now Lisa has opportunities to not only get business from the architect, but to get business from all the people that the architect is connected with. See how that works, right? So you can build your network on social media through a few ways. You can also build communities through groups, associations like this, and common areas of interest. Let me show you a couple examples. This is Facebook. How many people, again, just throw it in the chat, how many people are involved in Facebook groups? Lisa is, nope, yes. All right, and good, you guys are involved in groups. How many of you are involved in groups that are just related to your immediate sphere of influence? Meaning, I'm involved in a group that relates directly to my business, or I'm involved in a group that just relates to some social interest I have. And I give you 3 examples here. Maryland Boat Life, I live on the Broadneck, right? You guys see that connection? Now, if I am involved in the Maryland Boat Life, the I live on Broadneck, the networking in Annapolis, I've really touched 3 different spheres. The Maryland Boat Life is a social sphere, right? That's people that like boats. They have expressed no interest in sales and marketing. But guess what? If I work that sphere of influence properly, I can probably garner out of the 6,800 members in Maryland Boat Life. How many of you want to bet there's a few business owners in there? Right? Out of the 1.9 thousand members in networking in Annapolis, that's more of a business community group. How many business owners might be in networking in Annapolis? And then I live on Broadneck. Coincidentally, I live on the Broadneck Peninsula. How many business owners live on the Broadneck Peninsula? And so by nurturing and being helpful in each of those community groups, occasionally I will put out information on how to post on social media, how to get a better website ranking on Google, how to write a blog. I'll post that information, and inadvertently, wouldn't you know, somebody will usually hit me up and say, hey, I saw your blog or I saw your post and I'm actually interested in that. So that is tapping into that second and even third sphere of influence just through a simple tool like Facebook groups. And in just these 3 groups, I've got roughly 20,000 people that I could hit that are potential prospects for me. And even if we do raw numbers and I say 1 out of every 100 people might be a business owner, well, that's 20,000 people. So that's a pretty good ratio mix that I'm hitting. And that's free, guys. You don't have to spend any money on those people. You're just simply posting in those groups valuable information about how to, whatever it is your business. Lisa might post something about how to pick, what's the trendiest color for 2020, or what's the most interior design demand for 2020. It's probably home offices and additions. Am I right, Lisa? Yeah, she's shaking her head. So when you're posting in these groups, you're posting valuable content to a wide audience, and all you're wanting to do is cherry pick the people who have that need. It's really easy and it costs no money. And it enables you to tap into that sphere of influence and then push those people into some sort of nurturing system. Maybe it's an email campaign. Maybe they follow you on Facebook, so now they see more of your stuff. Maybe they follow you on Instagram. But all you're trying to do is bring that wider sphere of influence, that third sphere, maybe even the second sphere, and you're trying to push them closer to a 1 and a 2 sphere. That makes sense? Joy asked, what are the quality of those prospects? Again, the quality is irrelevant because we're just trying to push them closer into the sphere, because every single person in each of these groups may not be our target audience. We're just trying to cherry pick out the 1, 2, 3, or 10 that are our ideal client. And we do that through sphere of influence. We just keep pushing in that sphere of influence to push people into that 1 or 2 sphere, right? Let's take another example. LinkedIn groups. Now this is going to be interesting. In the chat, how many people use on a regular basis LinkedIn groups? A lot of people use Facebook groups, but how many people use LinkedIn groups? Nope. Nope, never, not me. Okay, guys, this is the gold mine. I just pulled up my profile and I just circled the ones that might be relevant to people in this group. But Baltimore, Annapolis professionals, there's almost 5,000 people in there. Guess what? Every single one of those people is a business professional. What do we know about business professionals? They have a job, they have income, and they're gainfully employed. In most of our industries, that's a big plus. We've just filtered out all of the lower quality leads, as if you will, because we already know that this is a professional network of people. So 5,000 people right there that are probably in our area and focused on professional kinds of services. Look down at Maryland Real Estate Professionals, 1,390 members. How many of you in here would love to have realtors give you or refer you business? Somebody's buying a new house and they need an interior designer. If somebody's looking to remodel their house and they need a remodeler or contractor, that would be a great group. Baltimore Connections, 13,000 people. Those are people that are in the Baltimore metro area that are focused on business development, owning a business. So just those three groups. Now for me, I go wider, right? I go across the country. So I've got folks in the executive suite, 371,000 people. I put one post in that group and I can reach over 300,000 people. Way bigger than Facebook and much more qualified than Facebook. And it is the most underutilized network on the planet. Quite frankly, because most people don't know how to use it. So it's a really great tool. Let me get back to basics on a couple of things. When it comes to your sphere of influence, the easiest customer to get is the one you already have. So make sure you are working that first sphere we talked about. If you're not emailing or touching your past clients or your prospects on a regular basis, you're missing the easiest customer you could possibly get. And that's the one who already knows you. The second thing is the number one way to generate referral business is simply to ask for it. If you've done a great job for a current client, guess what? That's your first sphere. Ask them, who else do you know that may be able to utilize my services? If you don't ask, you don't get. So if you ask for referral business, you're probably going to get an introduction 1 out of every 10 times you ask. And that's probably going to be a really great lead for you, because remember what we said about that close ratio, 60%? 60% of the time you ask for a referral, you're going to close that deal. That's pretty good ratio. The third thing, and this is the point that everybody just glazes over. Well, I'll use Elizabeth as an example. Elizabeth might say to me, Suzanne, do you know anybody else who might be a good fit for Annapolis Home? And I might say, yeah, probably got a few people. And Elizabeth says, great, would you mind referring me? Sure, Elizabeth, I'll refer you. That is very, very haphazard. What's better is if Elizabeth says to me, you know what, Suzanne, and I'm going to stop the share for a minute here. If Elizabeth says to me, you know what, Suzanne, it would be great if you could make an email introduction for me. Now, does anybody, go ahead and throw it in the chat, does anybody know why an email introduction is more effective than saying to Elizabeth, great, could you refer them over to me or maybe even give me their name? Why is it much more effective to do an email introduction than simply to ask for a name or ask me to refer somebody to Elizabeth? Anybody got any idea? It's in writing, okay. Kurt, you're on it again. It makes the connection because it actually happens. I know you did it. Exactly, you guys are on the right path, but yet so often we fail to ask for that email introduction. So here's how that goes. Elizabeth says, Suzanne, do you know anybody that would be a good fit for Annapolis Home? I say, yeah, Elizabeth, I've got a few clients that might be a good fit. And she says, would you mind making an email introduction? I've kind of already made the commitment that I know a few people. So now I feel committed that I should probably make the email introduction. And guess what I do? This is human nature, not just me personally. I sit down and I go, okay, I committed to make an email introduction. Let me think of a couple people that would be legitimate for her. And I type out a quick email. And I remember that Joe, it would probably be a good fit for her magazine. So I type out a quick email and I say, hey, Joe, I'm connecting with Elizabeth, and I carbon copy her. She has Annapolis Home magazine. This might be a good fit for you guys. I'm gonna let you guys take it from here. The win for me is I just got that commitment off my plate. The win for Elizabeth is she now has Joe's email information. The the ball's in Elizabeth's court. She can follow up with Joe, and I'm out of the loop. She didn't have to harass me or ask me about it. I'm out of the loop. For Elizabeth, she now holds the ball. She's in sales. She wants to hold the ball. And for Joe, Joe has a little bit of trust factor there because I referred him. I gave his information to Elizabeth, and he knows I'm not going to just do that with anybody. So the whole trust thing happened with about a 1 or 2 sentence email. How easy is that? Right? And in most cases, the ratio again is 60% because I've just pulled Joe into Elizabeth's second sphere of influence. Now, Elizabeth has a 60% more chance of closing some business with Joe if he's got a need than she did if she just said, Suzanne, if you ever know anybody that could use our services or, you know, could benefit from Annapolis Home, let me know. That's never going to happen. But now that I've just made that email introduction, that's a solid second sphere of influence for Elizabeth. You guys see how that kind of connects those dots? It's a big thing that nobody uses, but email introductions are a gold mine. And if you just ask one client, one every month for one email introduction, you've just escalated your sphere of influence, your close ratio, like everything is goes way up. And you only have to do it with 1 to 5 clients a month. Not a big challenge, not a big deal. So you got to understand how, and you got to work that sphere. I'm going to show you one more thing before we wrap it up because I know we're close on time here. On this particular screen, I'm showing you the difference between a Facebook personal brand and a Facebook company brand. On the personal brand, I want you posting about who you are. Are you a dog person? Are you a boater? Are you the expert in what you do? I want to know about you. On Facebook, under your company profile, I want to know more about what problem you solve and more of the business side of things. So there's 2 different profiles on Facebook, and most people fail to understand the difference. So if you look at that graphic, you just see under a personal profile, I want to know about you, what you like, what you do. Under your company page, I want to know about the products and services you sell and what problems you solve. Make sure you're making the differentiation there. The second thing is on LinkedIn. The same thing. I want to know about you. Why are you the expert? What's your background? What do you know? Whereas on LinkedIn, under my company profile, I'm all about what problem do you solve and what is it that you sell. You have to distinguish those 2 things on both platforms to really tap into the sphere of influence. I'm going to finish up. If anybody would like checklists on some of the things we've talked about today, you can hop on out to my website. I've opened everything up, so it's completely free. You download it. It's all sorts of things out there. How to identify your target client, a social media checklist. There's a checklist out there for how to create an SEOable blog. Most people don't know how to do that. It's literally, I think it's 5 or 6 steps. There's a checklist you can download out there. So if you hop out to the website, ideas360llc.com, and all of these tools are under resources. They're free for you to download today just for attending the event. And I think that's all of my slides for today. I hope I gave you a little bit of insight on sphere of influence and how you can take people from your immediate sphere of influence to that second sphere and pull them in from the third. It's a half-day workshop that I usually do that I try to condense down to 20 or 30 minutes here. So I hope it gave you some value. I hope it gave you some benefit. And I'll turn it back over to Kurt.